There's something amazing that happens when we hit that sweet intersection of our passions and interests aligning with what we get to do professionally. When that happens, we get to transcend success and truly be significant. And when you take on leadership roles, you get to change the way that business is being done. We're going to have an amazing conversation today where that happened, where that intersection of passion merged together with work that's being done in the DEI space. I can't wait for you to hear this conversation. So let's get into it. For the longest time, I secretly wanted more. I often found myself shrinking to fit in, settling for what was comfortable, and even selling myself short. Once I finally accepted that we deserve success and we are blessed with the power to achieve it, I stopped playing small. I'm serious about building a life I love, and you should be too. I'm Denise Taylor of DeniseTaylor.live, and welcome to Embrace Your Power. I help women prioritize themselves, their success, and their happiness. Now let's meet this week's achiever whose story will inspire you to embrace your power. Well, hello there. It's Denise Taylor here. And I am always excited to have you join me each and every week right here on Embrace Your Power. Now, this is the place where you can always count on me to encourage you to build a life that you love. You see, around these parts, we believe that God has given us the power to do it. And when we embrace our power, we truly can be, do, have, and achieve anything that we want. Now, I always say, I believe you're going to be divinely inspired to go after the things that God wants to partner with you to accomplish. But when you do that, you're going to feel satisfaction and fulfillment on the inside. And that's exactly what I want you to experience. I want you to be fulfilled and satisfied within. Now, in season 2 of the podcast, we have doubled down strong on your career success. I have had some amazing conversation with women who have really showed up to share from their experience. I said very early on in the season that you should get a journal and label it Embrace Your Power, because there is so much wisdom being shared that is going to help change the game for you. So if you've got your journal, then I want you to pull it out today, because we've got another amazing guest who is going to drop some gems. Now, before we get into that conversation, there may be someone tuning in for the very first time. And here's what I want you to know. Around these parts, we believe in the success superpowers. They are our strategies for success. There's 5 of them. Now, I'm going to cover them really quickly so that you can get up to speed with us. Success superpower number 1 is see yourself successful. It is so critical for you to envision the successful version of yourself and to become her, to allow that vision to woo you on your success journey so that you can achieve what it is that you want and deserve. Success superpower number 2 is shake off fear. And this is so critically important. Us sensing fear is a real life response to things that are going on. And you don't want to pray away that sensitivity. You want to give appropriate pause and concern when things need to have your attention. But you don't want to allow fear to stop you in your tracks. You want to know how to lean into that. And you do that by going back to the truth. Who did God say you are, and what did God say you could do? You stand on that truth and allow it to deepen your resolve to keep moving forward. Now, success superpower number 3 is do the work, and you've got a role to play. You've got to roll your sleeve up and you got to get busy. But here's the thing. God said he will bless the work of your hand. That's our promise. And so I want you to be diligent, but you got to promise that help is on the way. Success superpower superpower number 4 is take care of you. And we are so beautifully created, but we are also very complex. That just means that we've got to be extremely intentional about the way that we care for ourselves. It has to be a plan that is comprehensive to cover every aspect of who you are. The mantle of greatness is heavy. And if you don't develop the right strategies for caring for yourself, it will take you out. And so I want you to be very intentional when it comes to taking care of you. And then finally, success superpower number 5 is hold fast to your faith. On this success journey, you are going to run into headwinds, but I want you to be equipped and prepared and allow faith to be your guide and your fuel to just keep going so that you can persevere and get the success that you want and deserve. So those are our strategies for success. And not only success in the workplace, but success for every area where you want to achieve. Now, we have an incredible guest today. I am so elated to have Lydia Smith join me for an incredible conversation. She is the Chief Diversity Officer at Victoria's Secret. She is going to give us tips from the top, straight from the C-suite. And I want to tell you a little bit about Lydia, and then we'll get into the incredible conversation that we shared. After obtaining her MBA and bachelor's degree from Florida A&M University, Lydia began her career in information technology. She was selected to be a part of a prestigious fast-track leadership program at General Electric. And this is the place where she got more exposure to diversity, equity, and inclusion work when she took on a leadership role of their African American employee resource group. Her passion for diversity grew, and she moved into a consulting role with Northwestern Mutual and soon was promoted to the Assistant Director of Diversity and Inclusion. Now, in parallel, she also became the co-owner of Social X, a professional organization focused on connecting, developing, and retaining minority talent in the city of Milwaukee. She accepted the role as Director of Diversity and Inclusion at Kohl's Corporation in 2019, and then she recently transitioned and became the Chief Diversity Officer for Victoria's Secret, leading their DEI strategies across their entire enterprise. I am so excited to have this incredible conversation with Lydia. I really am so gracious that she took time out of her busy schedule to join me. So let's get into it, and I'll see you on the other side. So I have to say, I am excited today to welcome Lydia to Embrace Your Power. I've been looking forward to this conversation. In this season, I've had a chance to talk with a number of C-suite leaders, and I'm interested in her perspective sitting at the helm of DEI initiatives for her company. So welcome to Embrace Your Power. And why don't you do us a favor and just take a couple minutes to introduce yourself in your own words?
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited for this conversation. I am a working mother first. I am the Chief Diversity Officer at Victoria's Secret and Company, but I am a lover of all things diversity, equity, inclusion, and business, and where the intersection of all those things meet. I've been in the DEI space for a really long time, but I started my career in IT and worked in marketing. So, I've made my rounds all the time, finding ways to work on projects that I was personally passionate about, because I think that's what has fueled my work, what's helped me to make it through those hard days of work that I know we all experience. So I'm just excited to share, some of the things that I've learned as I progress through my career.
Awesome. So let's just start from a perspective of success. In your own words, define success for us.
Yeah, for me, success is that intersection where doing the things that you love doing are also making impact, and where it's making a difference, and that difference can be defined many ways. It could be driving growth. It could be making change. But I think for me, success is where you set a goal to make an impact and you are making that impact, that you're meeting that goal that you set.
That's awesome. Now, as you look over your experiences, what would you say is the hardest thing you had to overcome to sit in the seat you're sitting in now?
Well, that's a great question. For me, honestly, it was being able to have patience and think strategically, really think not just 2 or 3, but 4, 5, and 6 steps ahead. I think the elevation from what I would even say, senior manager, director level to getting into the executive ranks was that, my reputation that got me to that point was that I got things done. I was, added to projects. I was called on to help pull things together. I had built a reputation as being someone who could get things done. That's how I got to where I was. Mm-hmm. But to get to this next phase, it wasn't about getting things done because you're no longer the executor oftentimes. Mm-hmm. It was about being strategic and helping pull together the plan or strategy that's looking forward 5, 6, 7 steps ahead that's going to help us as an organization to do that. And I'll be honest, I think as a Black woman, many of us, that becomes who we are by nature, personally and professionally. We're the call somebody to do it, get somebody to do it. I'm going to make sure it gets done. Mm-hmm. And so I struggled with not being that person that's just like, just give it here, let me do it. Just that for me was a big shift in really being able to lead other teams and lead other people and just focus on strategy and not just be the person that is the get everything done person.
I love that insight because you're right. There is that bias and tendency to just want to grab the ball and run with it. And when you do elevate, you have to be able to drive the results through people and establish relationships, which is very different than leading with your strengths and making things happen. And so I think that's a very key call out. So if you take into consideration the impact that you believe success is and what you did to get to where you are you at a point in your career where you feel successful? And, do you think that there's certain things that lead into that now? Or do you feel like there's still meat on the bone that you want to grow into even now?
Absolutely. I think about the women that mentor me, the people that I look up to and who I've seen even since I started my career. And I'm, that's who I want to be when I grow up. And I still feel like I say that I'm growing up. I don't feel like I've gotten there. I don't feel like I'm there yet. I say it jokingly, but like it's the truth. I still feel like I haven't got to where I want to be when I grow up. And most of that is because of what I said when I talked about my definition of success, the impact. I truly believe there are more people I can impact. There's more change that I can make. There's more people that I can put on. I believe that that's a part of my purpose is opening doors and creating opportunities and connecting people, collaborations and partnerships. So I believe there's a lot more for me to do. So I've learned to give myself credit and to stop and to pause, to say thank you for the recognition that I get for the work that I have done. But I know that I'm not finished by any means. And I don't feel like I'm quote unquote there yet at all.
I love that. I love that. And you mentioned mentorship, which I'm a big advocate for. I just feel like bringing in that iron just makes a difference in our life. And so when you consider your relationships, what's the best career advice you've received and who gave it to you?
So I had the blessing of starting my career working for a Black woman who was an executive and also was a mother and a single mother. And I was a single mother and she has 2 daughters. I was a single mother of 2 daughters very early in my career too. And so I immediately just lashed onto her. I was like, tell me everything you know. Tell me everything. And what I loved was that, one, she gave it to me straight. She told me, she could tell me the things I didn't want to hear. But she also gave me permission. So I don't know so much that it was advice. And it's weird when I say this because I don't know that a person can give you permission, but she did. She gave me permission to choose to have a career and to be good at it, even though I was a young mother. And early on, there's all this good conversation about work-life balance and all these things. And she made me feel comfortable and confident that it wouldn't always be balanced, and that there were going to be some times that I was going to have to choose my career, and that would be okay. So there was a time when I was away from my daughters for a month because I got to be in China for training. Amazing experience, leadership experience. And had I not felt empowered to let go of the mom guilt for making that choice that early in my career, I don't know that I would be where I'm at. At least I wouldn't have gotten to where I was in the time that I did, because I needed to make that choice for my career at that moment. My daughters are 13 now. They don't even remember that I was gone that month, but they admire and respect what I've accomplished in my career. So I don't know that it was advice as much as it was advice. She was telling me, it's okay to make this choice for you very early in my career. And that's been how I've thought about it since then. I don't look at that it always has to be a balance. Sometimes I make choices and the choices work. And sometimes it's my kids. Sometimes I miss an event because I need to be at home for a volleyball game. Sometimes, I may miss a track meet to take a speaking engagement. So it's choices. And she helped me to feel comfortable making those choices very, very early in my career.
Wow. I think that's extremely powerful, because you're right. There are so many of us who do carry that. And as a person who spent a significant amount of time on the road, I'm really grateful and thankful that I had the support to be able to do that, right? But I too had to make the choices for family when that choice needed to be done. And so I understand what you're saying, but what I love that she was able to do for you is to help eliminate that overthinking that we sometimes thrust ourselves into, and convincing ourselves that it's not a possible way to make it happen when indeed it actually is. And so I think that it was beautiful that she could kind of speak that into your life and even example it for you so that you could know it was possible for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, one of the questions I love to ask, because sometimes people think that people who have accelerated to higher levels in the organization, like it was smooth sailing. So this is one of my favorite questions. What professional feedback did you receive that took you by surprise to hear, but now you're glad you received it because it forced you to grow?
Yeah. For me, early on, I heard, it's interesting, and I still think so. My filler word is I think. It's, and you'll hear it if you're listening to this, you're going to hear it. It's my filler word. I work on it. I try to be conscious of it, but it's my filler word. But what it used to not be a filler word. It used to be just based out of fear and lack of confidence. So I would say, I think this, I think that, as opposed to just saying, this is the way it is. It's a fact. I don't think it. I know the data. This is what the data says, like I would be reporting out. And I had a manager who said, do you think, or is it? Which one is it? Is it a fact, or do you think? And I was like, wait, what? And they were like, for you to be as good as you are and to know everything the way that you know it, you come off very timid. And saying you think instead of just stating the facts, it makes me question how confident you are in what you're sharing. And I was taken back a little bit because I was like, wait a minute, I didn't consider myself to not be confident. I felt like I was a good presenter. And I knew the things I had been in all this leadership stuff, so lack of confidence. I at first I was like, that's nothing. But then I started thinking about it and really had to dig deep and understand, like, when you go into these rooms, why are you all of a sudden fearful? What are you fearful of? What are you worried about? Are you worried that your information is wrong? Are you worried that they'll disagree? What is it? And I think what it really came down to was not necessarily that the information was wrong, but what was going to happen if I had to challenge and be challenged, because I had a reputation of being like the easy person to work with. I get along with people. People like working with me. And so what happens when, I got to be that person? And that was what I didn't realize at the time. Me getting that feedback and then going and working on that and kind of dealing with that fear of what happens when you're being challenged and everything, and dealing with that, me saying, I think, that was a preparation for this role that I'm in now. Because as a chief diversity officer, you are absolutely the person who's bringing things that people don't want to hear, who's pushing back, who's challenging people, who's saying those things. And I can't go into a meeting now and say, well, I think that this is the right thing to do. No, this is the right thing to do. And if we don't do this, there's some risk involved. Here's the risk. So I'm glad that I got that feedback when I did. I didn't see it then, but it was definitely preparing me for the role I'm in now.
Oh, I love that. And I think what undergirds that is you feeling confident in your decision making, right? And being able to back up what you are presenting. Were there any factors that led into you growing in confidence in decision making?
I think just trusting myself, probably. Knowing that I had a good team. So trusting my team, I think that's huge. Making sure, because, I didn't always do the data analysis. I was getting it from a team. So building trust in them, that they were, giving me the materials and the things that I need. And I think maybe also probably just building the relationships with my managers and my boss, them giving positive reinforcement too along the way, helped me to grow my confidence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Those relationships are so key. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of people go into the workplace and they almost cocoon. They don't really establish the relationships in a way because they're guarded for whatever reason. They feel like they don't want to cross lines or make it blurry. What are some tips you have for developing that relationship, be it with your team if you're leading, and even your leadership if you're in the place where you're driving some missions forward?
I had the gift, and I know this doesn't work for everyone, but when I was hired to join Victoria's Secret, my boss gave me 2 months to onboard. And I mean, really it's kind of like your 30, 60, 90, but it was 2 months. I was working on our strategy kind of on the back end. And I really had 2 tasks. I had to work on building out a team because I was the only person I was hired, and I had to start from scratch, build out a new team. And then to have meet and greets. Those are my only 2 tasks. On the backside, I was working on a strategy and, kind of in my own time, starting to think about things I wanted to do. But I really spent most of my time focusing on how I wanted to build a team out, and then meet and greets. And I can say wholeheartedly, those meet and greets have been the foundation of the success that I've had at the organization, because I met people and got to have conversations with them before I had to have tough conversations. So I think it's super important for people to be able to meet people without an agenda, without the objective, without having to influence them to a decision. You have to create that space to build relationships, because that's when you're building the relationship. You have to build it before you need it. Too often we wait until we need it, and then we're trying to build it when we need it, and it's not authentic. It doesn't feel good, and people can see through that. So I think the number one thing about relationship building is to start early. And it's not even something that you got to talk to the people all the time, every time. It's just being able to now, when I need to follow up and reach out to someone and I'm like, hey, it's been a while since we talked. I remember such and such or whatever they mentioned. And they're like, yeah. And we start a conversation. It goes a long way. And so I definitely think building it before you need it, build it without an agenda. And then, keeping those connections or those relationships that you think, where they are really key stakeholders, making sure that those are the people that you're tapping into often.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, but I wanted to hone in on one thing that you said, which is the startup aspect of how you came in and you had to build out a new team, because I've had to do that before. And it's really interesting when you have a clean slate, right? And you're looking to establish a team and bring in either to your strengths, some people say, to your weakness, some people say. What kind of strategies came to mind as to what you felt was important to infuse in the team beyond just experience, right? Because obviously there's a subject matter concept that you're working around, but what do you kind of subscribe to when it came time for you to build your team?
Collaboration and teamwork, number one. So much of the work in the DEI space, oftentimes we're under-resourced, just in general, right? I know I have a lot of peers who don't even have a team. They're a team of one, or they may have one or two people. So no matter how large your team is in this space, you are absolutely going to have to work together to get things done. So I think teamwork and collaboration was number one. And the other thing I think that's interesting that people don't always talk about, but it's really understanding where people are in their career growth, and what are they looking for, and can you help them? Because ultimately, we talk about that when you come into an organization, that balance between how much you're getting out of it and how much you're giving. And you want that to stay kind of close. The point of which, you're giving them way more than you feel like you're giving, that's when people start to look for other roles. Same thing is true if you're getting more out of it than you're giving. That's when the organization starts to look and say, wait a minute, is this a good fit? So really assessing someone's career goals and what they want to do and how they want to grow, and me understanding and knowing my strengths as a leader, will I really be able to help them? Or will I be able to connect them and help put them in a position or connect them to someone who can help them? Is really important, because I think that as you are building out a team, the teamwork, collaboration is important, but then that directly contributes to someone's like satisfaction in their role and working at the company. And so if you want to have a team where people aren't turning over every couple of months, that becomes super important to assess, what are they really looking to get out of their time with you on your team, and what can you contribute and help, put in to help them grow.
Oh, I love that. I really do love that. In fact, I do have this question for you. When you consider the middle manager ranks, what are some things that they can do to stand out or set themselves apart, right? Because you have a really good, healthy sense of what you need versus assessing what they need. What can they do to stimulate that perspective of impact that they're making to garner the attention of leaders?
I started off the conversation with saying this as I was talking about one of the things for me, but I think middle managers are at such a unique place, and it can be oftentimes a difficult place because you are likely still stuck in, the execution, the task, and really, being that get things done type of person. But in order to get to the next level, you got to show leaders that you can think strategically. So my advice is always identify the strategic projects that are happening, and then be a part of those projects. If there's a, small tiger team or project team that's doing some work, volunteer to be on those. Because ultimately, you got to figure out how to showcase that you can think outside of the tasks that you're driving or you're managing on a day-to-day basis. If it's possible, thinking about your capacity at work, make sure that every week you're devoting at least 2 to 3 hours of time on thinking about the next big thing. Because so often in that middle management level, you're really focused on meeting timelines, deadlines, and doing things to come in under budget, right? Like you're focused on those tasks. And so you don't have time or capacity to be thinking about the big project, big ideas and strategies. So I encourage people to carve out time each week to be thinking about what's next, not about what you're doing now, and thinking about then how do you present that to your leader, whether it's in a TB, hey, I was thinking about this. I've noticed what's been happening with the business over the past year. My prediction is that we're going to go into this next cycle. And so some things that we could do to avoid what happened before is X, Y, and Z. If you don't create the space to be able to present that type of thinking, it's really hard for you to get out of that middle management level, because they'll continue to see how you're great at doing things and they'll just ask you to do more things. So that would be my main advice.
Excellent advice. I tell people doing good work keeps you in that seat. You got to figure out how to shine an impact, and what you articulated so clearly is I've never seen a leader turn down a good idea or a solution on how to accelerate the organization or make them more effective or save money. And so just continuing to be thinking about how you could do it better, faster, get connected to some of those new initiatives. I look back at my own career, and I remember when e-commerce was just starting, right? And they were just like the people sitting in the dark side of the floor. They had all the lights out so that they could see what they were doing on the screen to create imagery. And I just kept remembering or thinking that there was something on the cusp of happening there. And I wanted to figure out how I could get connected. And to your point, it required initiative on my part. It required that I figured out how to become a part of what was happening. So I think that ownership is rightly placed on the manager, the middle manager, to say, how can you begin to work your way in? Thank you for that. So often go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, so often I think, and I've been guilty of this in the past too. And I shouldn't say guilty of this, because I think it's been the case in the past where I was in positions and I was doing the work that should have been a promotion. I think you and I have talked about this before. Like I was already doing the work at the level above me. And so we talk about like being promoted based off of potential or performance. And I think that comes into play here, that sometimes we think, well, if I just do more work, if I just do extra and I show them that I'm doing all the things that the director is doing, then I'll get it. When it's not always that. Like, I think that is something that we have to address, especially as women of color, in ensuring that there's equity in how we are, developed and promoted. But oftentimes it's because they're not looking for you to just keep doing more work. They're looking for the type of work that you are doing and what's the impact of the work. So you got to shift from just doing more to doing the right things that are going to get you that attention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I talk a lot about shining a light on your promotable skills, right? And it's not about working harder. It's not about burning yourself out or churning on that wheel even faster. It's really to your point of understanding, what does the organization value? What is coming up as these key initiatives that are stated? They talk about them in the townhouse, but most of us just tune that out, act like it doesn't apply to us, right? When really they're giving you the cheat codes of what's important to the organization. And so I love that you call that out, because we do that, right? And we even talk about that as this rite of passage, that I got to do more, right? And I got to prove more, as if it's going to open the door. But it really isn't that. It's you beginning to understand how to really shine a light on what's meaningful to the organization. So thanks for dropping that gem. Often we hear about this glass ceiling, and I don't know your experience as it relates to any barriers to advancement, but I'd love to understand what you might have experienced and had to personally navigate in your career.
I've not felt that it was ever impossible. I think I've been, at organizations or just at certain times in my career, and I've looked and I've not seen many who did it. So I've thought, okay, it's obviously very difficult, because if it wasn't, there would be more. But I've not ever felt like it was impossible to do. I think the barriers that I experienced were more so around like the ropes to skip and the ropes to know. Being in the in crowd of people that are getting the information that is necessary to advance, the stuff that they don't just tell you in meetings or in a performance review, the conversations that happen on a golf course or on a, Friday night after work and drinks, and being in those crowds. And so, but I don't want to discredit that, because I think in the corporate world, that is a barrier. Like, that is a challenge, and being able to fraternize and social network, I will say network with certain people at certain times does have an influence, because those are the people who speak your name in rooms when you're not there. And oftentimes those relationships, we were talking about relationships earlier, are built outside of work too. And that has always been a challenge for me, because from the beginning of my career, I had my daughters. I had them, and I got pregnant with my daughters 2 months into my professional career, right out of college. So I always, had to figure out, oh, well, I can't go to this after work because I'm going home, or I won't be at this or that. It was a challenge. It was a barrier, because there's things that are talked about and things people know and you might not always know. So it's been something that I've been able to navigate. I don't think that it has stopped me from making the progress that I've made, but I do notice, and I think we would be remiss to say that it doesn't exist, or to act as though that, personal networking in crowd circles aspect of corporate America, like, that it doesn't exist, because it definitely does. And it can be a barrier, especially when that's not or wouldn't be your chosen circle to socialize with.
Yeah, I know for myself, one of the things that I've had to learn to get over is shying away from it, right? And I may not have had the excuse of kids, but I just had the opinion that I didn't want to be bothered. So I would just kind of shy away from participating in certain things. And so I had to come up with a rule set to hold myself accountable to. And so it wasn't that I had to close the networking event down, but I did need to show a presence there. And I would be real intentional about going with, okay, here's the question I'm going to ask, and here's the number of people I'm going to talk to, right? And then once I checked my own boxes to make sure that I was honorable to all of my efforts to advance, then I could release myself and go home. But a lot of times we don't want to do the things that lessen the barriers, right? We want them to go away, but they go away because of certain things that we open ourselves up to doing and making ourselves available for. And so, as I look at my career, I can definitely say that there were barriers, but to your point, there was always a way to navigate it. You just really had to figure out who you needed to know, what relationships to forge. And to your point, I always say that room where the conversations are happening, the handle is on the inside. So somebody has to open the door for you, right? Because you can't open it for yourself. And so I think just really taking that ownership, like you described, is very powerful. Now, I do want to say I really love the representation that you have for us as the Chief Diversity Officer, and I commend you for that. I commend you for all the success that you're having. What kind of fueled your interest into the DEI space?
So when I think about my personality, I look back and I was doing the work before it was a thing. Well, it was probably a thing, but it wasn't to me. I didn't know what it was. I was that kid that would be at like the popular table or whatever in middle school at lunch, and then there'd be a kid that would be sitting by themselves that might be picked on or whatever, and I'm like, hey, come sit with me, come hang out with us. And then now, like they're sitting and having a good time. Like that was me, personality wise. I wasn't like very militant or like push back on a lot of things at that age. I was just, so I don't think I recognized it. I was sensitive to the diversity piece. I wasn't like a huge, like, oh, there's not advocacy. I wasn't advocating or necessarily like fighting for equity or anything at that time. I was all about like the inclusion aspect. Like everybody should be able to be a part. Mm-hmm. And then when I got to the workforce, and I was oftentimes the only woman, the only person of color, the only Black person on teams. And then I naturally get voluntold to do more work. And so once I realized that like, this is stuff I'm doing on top of my day job. Mm-hmm. And I'm at times feeling more passionate about this work than I am the work that they're actually paying me for. It was like, well, let me look into a career in DEI, because this is what I'm spending most of my time doing and what I'm really passionate about. So that's really how I got here, the encouragement of mentors to pursue something that I was really passionate about. And as my career has grown and evolved, I'm starting to see that no matter what I do, whether I'm in a CDO role or not, I'm going to bring that perspective. I'm going to be doing that work. So as my career evolves, I don't think I'm limited to this space or this type of role, because I've learned so much about business that I could do any role really. And I'm going to bring this lens to the work in the first place.
Yeah, I think it not changed you per se, but changes you once you get clear awareness of how far reaching it is and the potential impact that you can make. I imagine that you've had a chance to be a part of some great initiatives and make a lot of difference within the organizations. So you can either tell me about a successful initiative or about some key challenge that you were able to overcome sitting from that seat and driving those initiatives, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So, for us, we say that, our priority is to embed diversity, equity, and inclusion into everything that we do. And we mean that when we say it. But oftentimes this work, when people hear diversity, equity, and inclusion, they immediately think, HR focused, they think increasing representation, the number of insert whatever dimension of diversity, people of color, women, people with disabilities, different sexual orientations, and so on. But for us, I think one of the earlier challenges was, how do we get people on the business side of this work to really think about the opportunities from a marketplace perspective? We have these different target audiences and customers that we could acquire. And so we want to ensure that people are thinking about this work holistically. And so early on, we decided to go down this path of, creating products for women with disabilities, for people with disabilities. Mm-hmm. And it was really difficult because one, it was, people they thought that it might be the right thing to do, like it's the nice thing to do, but they didn't necessarily see the opportunity in it in the marketplace. So it was, needing to present the business case, but then also to be able to really build that out and talk through what this could look like, because it wasn't something that we ever did before. So it was hard. It was hard because there was a lot of convincing isn't the right word. It wasn't convincing, but it was making it make sense. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes we can get caught up, especially if it's a passion project, we can get caught up in the convincing. And people don't want to be or need to be convinced. They want you to make it make sense for them. Mm-hmm. And so I had to have that mental check out of the, this is the right thing. We should be doing this. And why aren't we in all these companies and we're this and we're not, to let me lay it out for you. Let me show you how this will work. Let me show you how everything will come, how this will help grow. Like, let me make this make sense. Once I made that shift, we were able to really get over the hump, and we are launching our first ever adaptive bra at the end of October.
That's awesome.
So it was a great experience because it was one of those projects where passion meets the business, and having to be, able to present both sides in an effective way to bring all the right partners along. And it really taking partners across the business, cross-functionally, to make it happen. But we did, and we are.
Oh, congratulations on that. And what I love hearing about, I just recently finished my DEI certification, and I love hearing how you were able to take the helm with partnering with others, of course, and drive a business perspective of it. Because oftentimes when we hear DEI, we think about the people aspect, right? We think about it more in how leaders are leading their teams, and not so much the customer lens and how we can begin to make an impact with the products we're bringing to the table. And so I love that you were able to be a part of an initiative like that. But I do have a question for you. As we're talking about leaders of people, what are some things that they can do to really make themselves open and available to inclusive behaviors or inclusive teams or tendencies as it relates to their leadership? Because I think driving that business context is cool, and I marvel at that, to be completely honest. But when we talk about leading the people within the organization that can help them grasp this in their everyday work, what suggestions do you have that they could take on?
My number one suggestion is always listen. Number two is take action. If I got to think of three, I could think of something different for the third one. But those are always my first two, because and what I mean by listen is actively listen. Oftentimes, especially when we think about inclusive leadership, leaders will say, I'm an ally, especially, and ally, you could be a diverse person yourself and still need to be an ally, right? But they can assume that, they're on the side of this DEI work. They get it, they know. And so many people start to take actions on behalf of other marginalized communities, or just people on your team, period, without understanding what they want and why they want it. So listening is number one, because you can't be an inclusive leader if you're not actually listening to the people on your team to understand where there are gaps and what their needs are and how they're being met. And then listen, meaning creating a safe space for people to be honest and give real and direct feedback. And I hear a lot of leaders say, they know that I'm cool. They know they can tell me anything. They know they can share anything. And then I say, okay, so when's the last time you got some constructive feedback? Or you got some criticism, or someone challenged you, or they offered a different idea. And when the leader says they can't remember, then I said, then that's a sign that there might be a disconnect between how you perceive you're creating this safe space and there actually being one. So I tell people to ask for it in meetings. Say something like, tell me a reason why this won't work. And then be quiet and just wait to see if anyone speaks up. And say, we're not moving on to the next topic until someone shows me why it doesn't work. And then once they show you, you reinforce with positive messaging. Thank you very much for sharing. I appreciate the feedback. You have to model it. But if you don't listen, if they don't think that you listen when you give them the feedback because you're not doing anything about it, they're going to stop giving the feedback. So that's why number two is take action. Because you can't ask people, I use the example all the time. How many of us were in situations in the wake of, the death of George Floyd, where we had listening sessions and things like that. And we're, talking about how we feel, and we're telling our organizations, these are all the things that I'm witnessing are happening. Like, how many of us can say we saw, a list of the actions that they took coming out of those sessions? I think it's not as many as we would like. So listening is absolutely important, but if you're not going to at least show some due diligence, right, you won't be able to fix everything that you hear, but if you don't show that you've taken some initiative to try to address the things that you're hearing, then they're also going to stop being open. And ultimately, if your team's not open with you, you're in a really bad place. Like if they don't feel that they could be safe and honest and open with you, that's not a good look as a leader, because then they're not able to look out for you the way that your team should be able to look out for you.
So it's time for your empowering moment. Now, this is where we take a pause for the cause of jumpstarting your success. During this segment, I feature my book, Embrace Your Power and Go. And if you're familiar with it, then you know it's a 30-day journey to help get you out of the starting blocks. We work on shifting your thinking about what's possible for you. Each and every day features 5 aspects. There's an intention for the day. There's a corresponding scripture. There's a passage I've penned for you. There's an affirmation you can begin to speak over your life. And there's a section for you to establish some goals in alignment with the success superpowers. And today we are on day 13 of that journey. It talks about the new normal. The scripture reference is this: do not remember the former things, nor consider the things of old. Behold, I will do a new thing. And that's Isaiah 43, 18 and 19. Now, in this passage, you can imagine I am encouraging you to lean into newness, freshness, and a new beginning for yourself, to shift your thinking about what's possible for you. And here's the affirmation that I encourage you with on that day: nothing catches me unaware. I am well equipped for these changing times and can pivot effectively when necessary. My ear is pressed up against the heart of God, and I move according to his leading. I can confidently embrace change because my steps are ordered. Now, if you can relate to that, then I want to invite you to go ahead and put your prime to work. The book, Embrace Your Power, is available on Amazon. But more than that, if you know it's time for you to step into a new normal, then I want to invite you to connect with me. This is what I help my clients to do, to break through everything standing in the way so that they can achieve the success that's going to light them up from the inside out. Now, you can access my calendar at www.callwithdenise. Select a time that works for you, and I will give you a call so that we can connect. I want you to experience success that feels just right for you. Okay, so now that we're back, we're hitting this section where I love to just tap into your wisdom and get your advice. I call out some things that I believe power leaders need, and that's just a moniker to really encourage women to step into their power and authority as leaders. And so I'd love to know your best advice for women who are feeling stretched. Either they're stretched by transition, opportunity, or pressure to perform.
Prioritize. Sometimes, listen, I think there probably is a time when you're feeling stressed and there's really nothing you can get off of your plate. In that case, then you gotta get support. And if we really looked and prioritized based on, impact and the ease, of getting things done, we could deprioritize some of those things that are stretching us, and we'll get to them once we get some of this other stuff done first.
Okay. What's your best advice for women struggling to fit in at work? They find it hard to be accepted and understood.
I would start by really assessing what's your objective. Is it to be liked or is it to be effective? And is there, when you say, hard to be understood? Is it that there is a, you know, is there a disconnect between, just who you are, where you got your education from, whatever it is, like where's the disconnect? And then build relationships around that, take some time away from work, ask for a coffee chat, ask for a lunch, and just, take that time to really introduce yourself, but help people to understand who you are, where you came from, why you think, you kind of have your philosophy. But then once you've done that work, and if you still feel that way, then I think you really have to assess again, is this going to impact my ability to get the things done that I need to get done? Or am I not really concerned with fitting in? Right? Am I more concerned with being effective? And I can't answer that because I don't think it's a right or a wrong, but it's understanding what's most important for you based on like where you are in your journey right now.
Yeah, I love that, because I can tell you at different points in my journey, I probably would have answered that question differently. And so it is a very personal question that you have to assess what you're valuing.
Exactly.
All right. The next one is your best advice for women wanting to advance their career and get to the next level.
Understand why. Understand the why you want to be at the next level. Is it just because you felt like you've done the work long enough? Do you want the title? Do you want the money? Understand why, because the grass isn't always greener. So I know what you are asking for, but more importantly, and I think 9 out of 10 people will tell you that in order to get to the next level, they had to very clearly be able to articulate why they already deserve to be there and what they wanted to be able to do and the type of impact they wanted to make when they got to that level. So if you want to get there, you have to know why. What is it that you're looking to get out of it? And what's the impact that you want to make? Then you can start to enlist people to help you put all the pieces together. What does the role look like? What experience do I need to make that happen? But you have to be really clear in articulating the why behind the what of getting there.
Yeah, I agree. All right. So I have these 12 skills, and I call them the power leader skills. And they're what I believe women in corporate America must know how to do well. I'm not going to ask you all 12. I'm going to ask you to give me 3 numbers between 1 and 12. And okay, whatever 3 numbers you pick, I will ask for your advice on that corresponding task or skill.
We'll do 7, 3, and 8.
All right. So here's number 7. How to have executive presence. What's your advice for that?
Oh my goodness. That is a trigger word for me. Because I have witnessed that used to, particularly for women, as a way to kind of, say that they weren't likable or, the personal side of their skill set. So I'm going to come at it strictly from a professional perspective in that, if it's presentations that make you nervous, then you need to practice presentations and you need to hire a coach. You need to, do like orders and things like that. Hire a speaking coach, practice, look in the mirror, do those things. So I do think that people can have challenges with executive presence, but if you've gotten that feedback, you need to dig and ask why and understand exactly what is it. Because really executive presence should be either the way that you're presenting, the way that you're showing up. It could be, an attitude. Sometimes people are saying, it could be a demeanor or things like that, but without the details, I think you really have to ask some more questions about that feedback and understand what it is exactly that's causing someone to say you need to work on your executive presence.
I love that. I love that. The next one is how to advocate for themselves.
How to advocate for themselves. If you have trouble with it, I think it's best to start in private. Practice your speech, get it prepared. And prepared, I mean, if you're advocating for more pay, then you need to have all your bullet points as to why you decide you should have more pay, a promotion, a position. Be very prepared, and practice and go into the discussion. But I think it's easier if if this is something that you're working on, doing it by yourself, doing it alone, because you don't feel that pressure. But I do think you have to be very clear on what you want and why.
Yeah. I love the preparation piece, because you can almost, you should solicit a partner, but not like your mama or your best friend. You want to solicit a partner that's going to raise some questions, because what I see people doing is they prepare for the conversation, but they are not prepared to like uphold the point, right? So when they get some pushback or they get a question, they know how to present it, but they don't know how to really, get behind it and justify it and like substantiate it. And I think some role playing, to your point, the whole practice thing is really important, because you got to know your stuff and know your points and be able to address the questions. Because I see people, they freeze up, like they knew how to, they practiced the speech until they were blue in the face, and they knew how to advocate in terms of presenting, but not really how to back it up. So I do like that practice element. The last one is how not to lose yourself by blending away your uniqueness.
Okay. I think my advice would be identify 2 to 3 things, maybe 4, that make you unique, and the things that you want to keep. That could be something physical. For me, it's my glasses, regardless of how I change my hair. I may wear it straight, not because I feel like I have to, but just because I want to. But I'm gonna have some glasses on probably. But that has become my thing. It could be your hair. It could be, this is it. It could be the way you present. It could be the way you dress. You could be like, yeah, I work at a business casual office, but I like to dress up. I like to dress in business. So I'm going to keep doing it that way. So it could be, something personal. It could be a physical trait. It could be your personality and who you are. But I think you have to identify those like 2 to 3 things that you are passionate about in terms of your own identity, and then decide that you're going to be unapologetic about them, and you're not going to change them. And then past that, there might be other things that you're like, okay, well, this is how they do it here. I could do that. I can come, we're not messing with these 3 things, but I can, flex, I can adjust in these other areas. But I think you have to really identify what those things are for you, and then be really unapologetic about them, and actually turn them into not just things that make you unique, but things that help you to be even more effective at your job.
I love that. I love that, because it kind of allows you to come up with some terms, because some people, they just don't want to give anything up. That could be the whole gamut of things, but you're right. There are usually some things where you're just like, these are non-negotiables for me. And then the rest of it, I can figure out how to make them work for me, but these I don't want to change. So I love that.
I'm not going to change. Yeah.
I know that's right. So here's our closeout questions. I've been asking these for a few years now. This is just more wisdom for you. What's your life wisdom? What would you tell your younger self about life if you could?
Just keep going. And don't stay stuck in the what happened, the why, what's gonna happen. I mean, I feel like there's so many days and hours and everything that I wish I could get back, because I was so worried about either something that had already happened and what the result or the impact was going to be, or something that hadn't happened yet. And then I wasted time in both cases. So if I could give myself any advice, it would be not to pretend that you're not going to sometimes be anxious. We're humans. Or you're going to doubt, or you're going to have a worry, whether that's personally or professionally. But to do a better job of really anchoring myself in my faith and not staying stuck there and wasting so much time in that spin that you can't get back. Just keep moving, because you figure it out.
I love it. What's your love wisdom? What would you tell your younger self about love if you could?
Oh, wow. To really pay attention to the places where it comes naturally and not focus so much on seeking it. Because those places where it comes naturally are the places where, when you're struggling with whatever, you can go back, because it's that fountain, that love there. It's there and it's natural. So put more energy into those places.
I love it. And then finally, your happiness wisdom. What would you tell your younger self about happiness if you could?
That you have to choose it. That it does not just come, it doesn't just fall out of the sky. Nobody guarantees that you will be happy or that you will stay happy, but you truly have to choose happiness, and you have to keep choosing it. It has to become a routine that you are choosing happiness.
I love that. So I just have one last thing to say to you. Success looks so good on you.
Thank you. Thank you.
You are welcome. And thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much. This was amazing.
So I got to tell you, I'm so excited. This was such a great conversation with Lydia, and I'm so glad she took time out to join us. She not only gave us practical guidance, but she gave us the thing that I think will change the game if we can embrace it. We have to show up and change the way that business is being done. That is how you make an impact. And it doesn't matter what seat you're sitting in. You have an opportunity each and every day to do exactly that. It is time for us to take up space and to begin to make an impact. And that's exactly how you shine a light on your promotable skills. It's not the job related things. It's how are you transforming the way business is being done. And I want you to seize the opportunity to do that so that you can begin to accelerate your success. Now, in season 2, I am doing far more than just showing up and having good conversations. I am also partnering and working with women very closely to help accelerate their career success. And if that's something you are interested in doing, then I welcome the opportunity to talk with you. Working with me begins with a discovery call, and that's very intentional. I want to make sure that we are going to be able to achieve the success you're looking for. And so on the discovery call, I ask a series of questions to make sure I can help you get the results that you want. And on that call, I won't just be listening, but I will also be giving you my professional recommendation on your best next step. A career is like the worst thing you want to keep guessing at. Your biggest play is to bring someone to the table to help you in your journey. And that's what I get to do for all of my clients. And so I want to invite you to book a discovery call with me. And it's really easy to do. You can access my calendar directly at www.callwithdenise.live. My calendar will open up and you can book a time right on there for me and you. I am going to give you a call at whatever time you book for us to connect. Not my representative, not my team. It's going to be me on the other end of that phone. And I am going to take a devoted interest in what you want to achieve. We'll talk about where you're at and potentially any headwinds you're facing. But at the end of it, I am going to share with you what I believe your best step needs to be at this time. And so if you're interested in that support, it's absolutely free. I want to invite you to go to www.callwithdenise.live, book a time for us. Let me give you a call and let me help you with my wisdom, my insight, and my experience. Now, I don't know where you're listening, but I hope that you will take the time to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast, because when you subscribe, that means I'll end up in your lineup next week and we'll be able to connect again. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Now, if you love this episode, you're going to want to access the free resource I curated just for you. The Power Leader Toolkit is absolutely free, and it includes 3 power-packed career transforming resources that will help you change the game and build the career that you want and deserve. It includes my powerful training, The 7 Habits of Highly Successful Women. Now, you can get your hands on this toolkit right now. And as I said, it's absolutely free. You can access it at www.powerleadertoolkit.live. Again, that's www.powerleadertoolkit.live. And of course, I'll be back next week with more power leader strategies to help you transform your career. But until then, remember to always embrace your power and go.